Welcome to the Oceania 7K World Cup 2026 recap show. We're here to get you caught up in the action, feature amazing scores, and maybe spotlight certain people involved with the biggest ever edition of the tournament. We are back with the round of 16 weekend, where we saw the first batch of eliminations and higher seeded teams flex their muscles. There's a lot to show right now, so let's get started.
The first ever match of the round of 16 weekend started with the first of many losers bracket matches, beginning with none other than Macau facing New Zealand after a rough round of 32 on both ends. To set the record straight, New Zealand started with a quick victory on Rice-free RTTR, while Rubies and Joki proved their worth as a force to be reckoned with, snagging victories on Ellen-free True Blue. Macau fought even harder on their own protect on Rice 5 Ama Totetsu Bonbon, albeit to no success as New Zealand won and pushed with even more victories on Marilag and Symphony of the Frozen Cacophony, resulting in a quick 5-0 sweep for New Zealand. With that, Macau will unfortunately have to leave as the first team to be knocked out of this year's World Cup.
With the second match of the weekend, Italy attempted to survive the round of 16 against Germany from the brink of elimination of the tournament. With contrasting protects and bans from both teams, Germany immediately started off with an EX1 pick, Love Pills. This was a great way to start off a match, a quarterfinals-ish level of Rice density, and they did not disappoint, scoring an average of 968k for Team Germany. Italy wanted to test the waters by going with the Hybrid 2 pick, Reizo Komitara Pudding Ganai, but unfortunately, this wouldn't favor their odds as Sukiya Whisker's 982 KFC would help widen the gap in their lead. Now it was time for Italy's Protect, Rice 3 RTTR. This was one of the chances where Italy could have gotten a point, but with around 5,000 points lost mid-map in Germany's favor, all they needed was an accuracy decline from their opponent's side. Sadly, even though Black Who Won got a miss at around 80% on the map, shrinking the lead to around 3,000 points, it was not enough to pull the lead to the red team. The match continued in the same fashion through the last remaining picks on Rice 2, Diano Mien Mien Mao, and LN2, Ji Lin Chao, ending the match with a 0-5 in favor of Germany. This would become a dead end for the side of Italy, cementing their final placement at the round of 16 as Germany continues to fight through the losers bracket of quarterfinals next weekend. Best of luck for the team next year.
Taiwan managed to emerge unscathed from their match with Norway, where amazing performances by Veloce and Hero Jeff proved to be too much for their European counterparts. Most notable of these are the double 980,000 run on the speed chart Reach for Your Victory. With this win, Taiwan manages to get to the quarterfinal stage for the third year in a row, while Norway will have to wait another year for a shot at glory.
Last week, we didn't get to cover Sweden's 5-2 loss against Spain, but this week, as a result, Sweden now gets to face off against a slightly easier opponent in Singapore. For the first three maps, Sweden's consistency was just too much for the Singaporeans to be able to keep up, and so Sweden started off up 3-0. Something changed as we went to Singapore's pick of EX1, where both Doggy Dad Sucks and Origami Best stepped on the gas, easily picking it up. The same was the case for EX2, where Doggy That Sucks was able to carry the team on their back with an impressive FC. At this point, Singapore had begun forming a comeback, and it all rode on their ability to play the hybrid EX3. However, just like previous picks, the star player for Sweden, Venice, was able to stop Singapore in their tracks, getting a 9-8k and securing the match.
The clash between these two teams is very interesting because Japan, being an absolute titan when it comes to rice picks, against Venezuela being a respectable all-rounder team in the early game, sounds like it could end up with maps ending with incredibly small score gaps. And somehow, it turned out to be true as the blue team started out with Hybrid 2 with a gap of less than 2,000 points, 2/3 in the map, only for a slider break by ADOG145 to switch the lead back to Japan in a millisecond, with also 2,000 points in favor of the latter team. And if you think that's the end of the intensely close score gap sketch, think again, as Hybrid 1 Tetris was picked with yet again another close gap in favor of Venezuela at 969 points, giving them their first breakpoint. Take a listen.
And again, there's a
Ooh,
1,000
hold on.
now.
There's still a bunch more.
On the verge of actually getting to.
Oh, this got
is actually. Oh my god,
Oh,
Venezuela takes it. Venezuela takes the break point back to back here.
You know, given that all of the players managed to maintain their combos at the end, any sort of accuracy breakdown from Venezuela could have easily pulled their lead away back to Japan. This just shows how accuracy matters a lot in the Osumania Score V2 tournament settings. Now it was time for Venezuela's second pick, Hybrid 2, World.Execute Me. There were a few hiccups here and there for Team Japan, but the longer the map progressed and the higher Misa's combo went, even with that clutch miss at the end, Team Red was able to secure their second point as a nullifier to Venezuela's prior breakpoint. Now with everyone's favorite game in every Mania World Cup streams, ratio checking, it was time for Rice 4 Soyo Soyo, the core jack pick. Surprisingly, Suzuha L, missing a quarter in the map, secured a significantly close lead in favor of Venezuela just before the break portion of the map. But then, a trade-off happened with A-Dog 145 missing mere seconds before the break. It immediately favored Japan with Botanic's 99.92 accuracy supporting the team. A damage control by Sir Ale to compensate for A-Dog's one miss was just not enough to minimize the lead as all of the teams gained accuracy until the end of the map. This would become bad news for Team Venezuela as Hybrid 3, Sapphire on Fire, and EX3, Symphony of the Frozen Cacophony was all in favor of Team Japan, concluding the match 5-1. With Japan moving on to the winners bracket quarterfinals, Venezuela will have to claw their way into the losers bracket with their first challenge of playing the quarterfinal map twice in order to survive the week.
Although we did not manage to get any tiebreakers across this week contrary to the random 32 bracket, there was one match that stood out as a match that almost ended up with such an outcome. This match was between none other than Hong Kong versus Thailand, both strong teams by every measure as their clash spanned every category. Both teams began with some really high rolls, Thailand rolling 88 and Hong Kong's roll being only 4 ditches away from meeting the lucky 100 mark. We saw EX1 Love Pills and EX2 World Execute Me get protected, with Rice 1 Reach for Your Victory and LN1 Maralag getting banned swiftly. Hong Kong opted for a pick on Rice Free RTTR, looking to start the match on a strong note. However, Thailand immediately took them by surprise as it was a close victory of only 1,020 points on record. It was a strong breakpoint to start off on for Thailand, so they opted in for a pick of Hybrid 1 Teteris to test the waters of picks that would be safer for them. But would you look at that, Hong Kong returned the favor with a victory of 5,015 points, following some unfortunate chokes from Natsurio that carried to the end. So Hong Kong threw out EX1 Love Pills in response to take out a dose of victory, only for Thailand to absolutely snap at them towards the end. It was a rocky ride for everyone the whole way through, resulting in perhaps one of the closest rounds we've seen all weekend. It is from there that Thailand surged right into EX3's Symphony of the Frozen Cacophony in response, which ended up becoming really close throughout the entire map until the end, where Maftaliv of the Hong Kong team eventually caved in from the fatigue. While it was a close fight from Zek to keep Pibu in check, the final score ended at 17,331 points for Thailand. In came the second ban wave for both teams, as we saw both teams roll the complete opposite of what they rolled at first, with Hong Kong rolling 18 and Thailand rolling what is deliberately Japan and America's PTSD, a single point of 1. From there, however, LN2 Jin Li Chao got a ban from Hong Kong given its similarities to Maralag, and Thailand struck out Rice 4 Soyo Soyo as well, knowing it is one of the last few raw skill maps that they knew Hong Kong could demolish like some kind of construction sites. Nonetheless, Hong Kong proceeded with a pick of Rice 2 Deno Mean Mao, the denser coolstream chart where Natsurio did not have the brightest of days going through the map, resulting in quite an objective victory for Hong Kong of 35,218 points. But Thailand quickly clapped back with a win on Hybrid 2 Reizoku Matara Pudding Ganai. Both teams began to run out of picks, which meant that it was down to Hong Kong to respond with the only Rice map left on the board, being Rice 5 Ama Totetsu Bonbon. This was one of the riskiest picks for them, given that they had to bank on both Lost School and Natsurio finding blunders on a variety of the incredibly volatile patterning, including strict grace control and a ton of double staircases. Towards the end, it was a matter of team consistency, as Zek and Lost School were only 263 points apart, but Sensex managed to beat out Natsurio through a battle of the least amount of misjudges you could get throughout the map. Now, Thailand was at match point, and that was when Hong Kong had the final pick before we could have seen a potential tiebreaker. and that pick was spent on Thailand's protective EX2 World Execute Me to round out the extreme category of maps. And honestly, there could not have been a better time to bring it out either. The biggest catch to watch out for here on the side of Thailand was that Hong Kong had the steadiest of paces on the map, remaining almost completely even without even breaking a sweat. However, fatigue started to wear enough to live again, and countered by Peru as it became an absolute bloodbath of misses on the final third of the map, with Law School sporting as an absolute soldier for Thailand, MVPing the map with a full combo and a nearly 900k score, and in my opinion, one of the score highlights of this week in general. It was heartbreaking for Hong Kong. While they put up such a strong fight trying to prevent the upset, Thailand still remained as fresh as ever with their 2026 comeback. They will now move on to the quarterfinals winners bracket to fight against the Philippines, while Hong Kong moves down a bracket to face New Zealand. So I bid the best of luck for both teams going into the next weekend, as they are both gonna have to start shredding soon.
The third winners bracket match of the weekend features 6-seeded Peru facing a tough 11-seed Poland. Both teams feature two phenomenal players in Shio and Baguetka respectively, and it was expected that the supporting players would be the ones to make the difference. These expectations were not unfounded though, as Josiah proved to be an amazing support to Shio as Peru found themselves sweeping their opponents. Also, this recap wouldn't be complete without mentioning Shio's 13-300 run on Soyo Soyo.
Time for the match between multiples of 16s. Seed number 32 Denmark versus seed number 16 France. Starting off with the hybrid 1 pick, with France showing off their domination at a 112k score lead and a 985k full combo by Clamati. Next up was Rice 4, and yet another 6-digit score lead favoring France was just an assured second point for France. One thing I would point out though was Jerem's ratio and one miss, which could have been around 998.5k if that miss never happened. As for the hybrid 2 pick, it was looking like there could have been a shine of hope for Team Denmark, with Freet having the highest accuracy out of everyone in the team, but the team average by France was just not enough for them to secure a point in the end. Unfortunately, this phenomenon would continue forwards with Hybrid 3 and EX2 ending with a 0-5 in favor of France. Sad news is that this would mark the end of Denmark for this tournament, placing them in the round of 16, while France, being in the losers bracket, will have to strive their way into surviving next weekend's quarterfinals.
As a result of Ireland's incredible upset against 8th-seeded Australia in the previous week, it was no wonder that they would eventually have to expect facing yet another scary team in the winners bracket soon after, being none other than the United States, to see whether they could work their magic once more. Ireland won the roles first thing and dove headfirst into United States protective Soyo Soyo, feeling as bold as ever. Everyone headed into this pick expecting nothing unusual. However, Bosbro picked up a bunch of misses throughout the map, feeling not so hot on a lot of the jacks, which anchored down the American team's scores, allowing for Ireland to get away with a consistent victory of 30k score. This was despite Logan's best efforts in getting only 10 perfects on the entire map, which, if I may just ask, what are you on? Unfortunately for Ireland, that's where the fun ended, as the United States broke out Hybrid 3 Sapphire and Fire with Nameless Fnatic and Potato joining the faction in Bosworth's place for many of the picks going forward. The United States proceeded to win with twice the amount that Ireland won with at first, before also taking on solid victories on Rice 3 RTCR, Hybrid 1 Tetris, LN1 Marilag, and finally EX1 Love Pills to top it off, dealing the Irish a taste of their own medicine. It is unfortunate that Ireland found themselves pulling at the Bulls' horns this early, making them fall into the losers bracket on their first ever 7K World Cup run. That said, they've already made compelling moves and they're not out yet. So while the United States will proceed into the quarterfinals as winners bracket, where they may face even tougher challenges as well, I wish the best of luck to both these teams moving forward.
When you face a team well known for placing podium for the past 14 installments of the Mania 7K World Cups, China, it would be an absolute challenge for Team Mexico to try and take them down, especially in the early game, where minor hiccups or accuracy deficits would cost the entire point to the opposing team. And starting off with the LN3 density pick True Blue, China was not messing around with a solid team score by both Turks and Satori at a 50,000 point lead. The same goes with Hybrid 1 with a double full combo by the same team that locked in their lead for pretty much the whole drain time of the map. While Rice 3 was an opportunity that Mexico could have snagged off from China, the 0.3% accuracy difference was just not enough to pull back a lead to their favor, not even Kopi's 991k score. This streak would continue up until the very end on LN2 and Rice won, concluding the match 5-0. Even though it's not yet the end for Mexico, they will have to be relegated to the losers bracket and try their best to fight for their spot in the quarterfinals. Meanwhile, China, on the other hand, will be facing Peru next weekend.
Sunday's second match showcased two aggressive teams charging straight into each other, Philippines and Spain, both eager to continue their rampage in the winner's bracket. The two came into the match with pretty unpredictable banning strategies, to the chagrin of the commentators, but the match itself was fairly straightforward. Like the metaphor we're going with here, Spain did manage to make their higher seeded opponent concede the map by pulling ever so slightly ahead with a 361 point gap on Denno Myanmar. Another notable moment was when Marilag was played and Boji posted the weekend's best accuracy on the chart. The Philippines will move ahead to the quarterfinals to continue their campaign to a fourth straight podium finish. Spain, on the other hand, has quite a challenge ahead of them if they want to better their finish from last year.
We continue the later half of the matches with the UK versus Vietnam, which is one of the closest matches of the weekend. The first two maps go in favor of Vietnam overwhelmingly, with both players on Vietnam's accuracy consistently overpowering the UK's. The third map was where things started to change in favor of the UK, because even after not having the lead for over half the map, Wander Yonder was able to carry their team to getting a point on the board. The UK evened up the score after winning a breakpoint on Hybrid 1 and go onto a bold pick of EX2 after the second round of bans. The map starts off as normal with the UK having an extremely small lead, but as soon as Uzi took the first miss, it seemed to cause a domino effect, as shortly after, both UK players continually took misses. Luckily, accuracy was on their side, so they still had an opportunity to come back. But it just wasn't meant to be, as Vietnam's combo was just too strong to overcome and the UK loses a pivotal breakpoint. Vietnam took the advantage that was given to them, winning the match 5-3 and knocked the UK out of the tournament.
Fourth seed Indonesia resumed their journey to podium contention by beating a fighting Russian Federation on the penultimate winners bracket match for this round. Notable team scores from the Southeast Asians proved to be hard to beat for their lower seeded opponents. Russia did have their shining moment when Team Ibuka scored an MVP level performance on the Korjak pick Soyo Soyo. Yeah, closed out the match in style after managing to get a ridiculous 987k full combo on Symphony on the Frozen Cacophony. While Team Russia joins the losers bracket where they will have to try and push harder to stay in the tournament, Team Indonesia also has the big challenge ahead of them in their match against Japan next weekend.
After losing to Ireland last week, Australia has now become the demons of the losers bracket. Their first of their possible many victims is the Netherlands, which previously lost to the United States 5-1. Even with the massive seeding difference between the two teams, after losing Rice 5, the Netherlands chose LN2 where they were able to take a point off the back of an FC from free. However, Australia was just too strong on hybrids, getting the second top score on the weekend on both Hybrid 1 and 2, easily allowing the Aussies to win 5-2. Kicking the Netherlands out of the tournament early.
One of Canada's biggest challenges in this tournament would be facing the team that has been constantly dominating the 7-key scene, whether in a tournament or in a casual setting, South Korea. While both are in fact well known for performing incredibly well in early game, the question here is which team misses the least in order to move on to the next round with a winner's bracket attached to their country. Starting off with a ratio check on Rice 4 with an incredibly close score gap due to Dresser's 250s before the break portion. It was looking like a chance that Canada could hope to snatch. Unfortunately, with a few seconds and a heartbreaking miss by Dale 940, ultimately assured the first point in favor of South Korea, turning the less than 2,000 points gap to 6,970 points. Now came Rice 2, and the Dresser Kalkai duo was definitely not kidding around in the lobby, with both of them having 997 Ks, just 300 difference between both players. The same story happened in EX3 with a team swap to South Korea and another double FC from the team. It was just not enough for Team Canada to swipe a point out of them despite having a 99% team accuracy. Unfortunately, this would continue on for the last two maps picked on Rise 3 and EX1, concluding the match 5-0. Canada will have to face Vietnam next weekend, and whichever team wins between Ireland and Germany with an assumption that they would win the prior match. But it's still not over yet for the team. Meanwhile, South Korea will confront the United States in the winner's bracket as we approach the surface of mid-game difficulty, that is the quarterfinals.
Last match alert, and this is one of the closest seeding differentials in the losers bracket. Brazil versus Portugal. Portugal starts off strong, going up 3 points. However, as we move on to Rise 4, Brazil is finally able to take an extremely close map by only 3,900 points, with an insane score of 998k from Silly Fangirl, who's already been MVPing nearly every single map so far. In the end, Brazil was able to take another point on LN1 after the second ban phase. That was all they could muster, because Portugal ended up winning 5-2 with a notable nearly 996k by Sunika on Rice 3.
And that ends our round of 16 recap. While we didn't have that many close matches this weekend, the players didn't fail to impress us with really ridiculous scores this weekend. We are expecting that the ridiculousness won't stop as we enter the next round. Again, whether you're supporting your country, players, and whatnot, make sure to stick around since as of this video's upload time, the quarterfinals weekend has already commenced, and we'll be back soon with more breakdowns, highlights, and everything you need to stay caught up with the competition. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.